Well, we started, Jamie, of course, was adopted as an infant. I shouldn't say of course, but Jamie was adopted as an infant, and I was actually adopted into my best friend's family when I was a junior in high school. My parents divorced, and so that to stay in the same school district, I lived with my best friend's family for the last 2 years. And I mean, obviously adoption was a big part of our life, and we just felt that God was calling us. We had 4 children of our own, and we couldn't have any more, and so we wanted to have one more, and we thought that adoption would be a good thing for us. And so we got involved through our church. We had a couple friends that had adopted 2 children from Haiti and had a connection there in Haiti, and they were receiving pictures from this person and brought those pictures to Jamie. And Jamie saw Naika and called me one day and said, I found the little girl who we're going to adopt. And so I said, well, then let's get going.
Well, it's kind of an amazing story, but we didn't realize it at the time. But this family had brought several pictures to us prior to Naika's, and it just nothing was feeling right to me, really. I wasn't quite ready, or just, nothing really caught. I mean, it's not that I wasn't tender towards those pictures, but when they brought Naika's picture, I could tell, there was just something very different. And long story short is that the 2 Haitian children that they had adopted, they were hanging out at the Sioux Falls Mall one day, and a Haitian man came up to them and spoke to their little boy in his native language. And the little boy, looked up at him, and the Haitian man knew the little boy because he'd been at the orphanage in Haiti, and he'd fallen in love with a Pipestone, Minnesota woman, and had married, and they were in the Sioux Falls Mall, and he recognized this little boy, and he's the one that actually had Naika's picture in his back pocket, because he's the one that took her in from her birth mom, and he just loved her. She was a beautiful baby, and he spent time with her, and he wanted to, I don't want to say get her out, of Haiti, but it's terrible there. So he had this picture in his pocket, and he started talking to this family, and then that's, how they brought that picture to us. So it's really kind of a neat, really, that he would run into people we know in Sioux Falls, and then ask if they knew of anyone who might be willing, interested in adopting this little girl. Well, there wasn't really an agency involved for us. It's an orphanage in Port-au-Prince that 2 American women are actually responsible for, in terms of ownership, and they employ Haitian women there as the nannies, but it's American run. So we talked to them on the phone, and they asked us the standard for them is just to at least pray about it for 3 days. Which we both did. He was on the road, surprise, surprise, at some game. And so I think on a Monday morning, we called her back and said yes, that there was nothing really that would stop us. We knew that this was the right direction to go. And then we got a checklist from them of all the steps, that we had to take. And
they had their own attorney at the orphanage, and so we worked with a Haitian attorney. We had to go through, I think it was Lutheran Social Services in Sioux Falls, because they have to do background checks, do a home study. And so, we went, there are a lot of steps, and Jamie obviously was responsible. I say obviously, I mean, she did most of it and took care of it. And then once we got everything done, you just kind of have to wait until the Haitian government decides to move on it, which could be right away, or you could wait. And so our process took 10 months.
Well, maybe you can relate, but if you knew everything that was ahead, you may not ever take a step. And so I feel that way about this situation too. We are amazingly changed and blessed and better educated, for lack of a better word, as a family because of what we did decide to do and because of Naika being in our home. But setting out to do it, I will speak for myself, I had no reservations. I mean, I'm adopted, and all I had in my head was just to pay it forward. That's all, pretty much. And I know I read one book about adoption and attachment issues, and I just remember sitting in bed with Scott and like saying, well, the book says that she might have trouble, you know, attaching, or all the way from mild to severe behavior issues and all these things. And we were like, oh, you know, we have 4 kids. So in our mind, things were just going to go like they had, I'm laughing now, but always things would go like they always done.
You know, I think just like if you have your first child, you're a little bit naive about how it's going to be, and we were, but you know, after having gone through it, and she's been with us 7.5 years now. I mean, it hasn't always been easy, but it hasn't always been easy having our own children, and there are just different issues than our other children, but it's, you know, there isn't any question it's been worth it.
Well, no, she still hasn't. In fact, I mean, she has quite a bit. Like, when I look back now, I mean, we were strangers, right? When we met her in Miami at the hotel, we're strangers. She's in a whole different country that smells different, looks, I mean, I could get teary just thinking about the fear that she must have been feeling at 2.5 years old in a hotel. I mean, she's never seen anything like it. So when I look back at those pictures, now that I know her better, I can see, oh my goodness, it was traumatizing for her.
Because you're bringing her home and everybody's happy about it, and guarantee you she's not, because she has no idea what's going on. Different language, you know, different color skin, 2 dogs that, you know, and she's scared to death of dogs because of the dog that terrorized her orphanage over there. I mean, she would scream when the dog came in the room. Yeah, of course now she, you know, you can't get her away from the dogs, and she loves them, but there was just, you know, she would, I can remember she would laugh with our kids, like if they were taking a bath, or, but as soon as we walked in the room, boom, she just went quiet. As soon as the adults walked in the room, you know, I don't know how long it took before she even...
It was, oh, I don't know either. It was a long time before we heard her start, you know, speaking. But like Scott said, she wouldn't do that with us. She would do that with Natalie, her sister, more. And then you ask how long it took her to relax. Well, her brain, and I've just learned this after, you know, we had her home for a while, but her brain is overdeveloped in the panic area, like the amygdala, where, you know, you come up on a car accident or something and you go into overdrive kind of. Well, that's what an orphanage mentality is. Like, there's always that, you know, there's survival. Yeah, survival mode. And so she would hide food, or you know, self-parent. And now when I tell her about how, like, I took her to the park when she was little and she'd go down the fire pole thing. Well, my kids, and she's my kid too, but what I mean, my biological kids would go down that pole, and I would have all their weight in my hands, and then she would go down, and I told Scott, I think she can suspend herself in air. I mean, she just would not let herself trust, you know, that I would, and that was really difficult, painful. And just the other day, I saw her like have a happy moment. She was going to, and she has lots of happy moments, but I just noticed the difference in her facial expression. She was going to a sleepover, and she said something about how that's the best place for girls to hang out, and she was all happy, and I said, yeah, it is, and have fun. And I started to pull out of the driveway, and she forgot something in the car, and I saw that old panic, you know, look on her face, and I just thought, oh, you know, she's come a long way. It's just still, you know, her brain developed differently, and some of that is still there.
She may never totally forget it, you know. We always talk. I always tell Jamie there's just certain needs we're not going to be able to meet with her that we can meet with our other children, and we just have to rely on God to meet those, because we're not going to be perfect parents. And there are just some things that we can't, you know, and every adoption situation is different, obviously, but, you know, in our situation, she's in a family where everybody's skin color is different, and she lives in a community where almost everybody's is, and we can't change those things right now, and how she feels different. Some of those needs we just can't meet. Probably, you know, it seemed like for our boys, our 3 boys were older. It didn't seem like it took much for them to adjust to her, but, you know, Natalie was the youngest girl. They're 9 months apart, and, you know, she went from being the only girl, the princess, to having to share a room and all her stuff. You know, I thought she handled it really well. You know, Jamie was concerned about it, how it would be tough for Natalie, and I was too, but like, I always thought this would be good for Natalie, that she understands that, you know, the world doesn't operate just around her. And she's been, I think she's handled it incredibly well. I mean, we've been really proud of her.
Well, part of me wants to say, how long do you have? Just because I've learned so much, I think I know more now how to answer that, obviously, because we've adopted now. But I think because I'm an adoptee and an adoptive mom, I just think I have extra insight that sometimes makes it more painful for me. But advice-wise would be things like to please recognize that adoption is a great thing. Like, there's a great component, a great thing to celebrate about it, and there's trauma. And whether that child was adopted like me at 7 days old, 1 day old, I mean, the research shows that there's trauma when a baby is separated from its home, its 9-month home. And so that applies to all adoption situations, in that, right, there's 2 sides. And for the parents not to be afraid to address both, to embrace both. It's not all bad, it's not all good, it just is both. And we have dear friends in Sioux Falls that are parents of 3 adorable children that are all adopted, and they're progressing to another one. And our conversations with them have been really candid, and I'm thankful for that, because we've got infertility there, we've got adoptees, we've got adoptive parents, we've got all of it going on, and I'm so thankful for our friendship. And the other piece of advice I would share, that they just were dealing with their oldest, who's like a 1st grade little guy, had to do a family tree for school, and he was already like upset about it. And, you know, they've been so open with him, but he's very black and white, and he wanted to put his real, you know, family down, and he was feeling like if he put his adoptive family down, that might be a lie on the paper, and he didn't want to, you know. And so she kind of talked to him about real, and just that, again, that dual component, that for an adopted person, it's not one or the other. One is not more real than the other. Naika has two moms, 2 dads, 2 families. So, and I would think the same for you, like, his mom and dad are totally his mom and dad, and he has this family that for a time in his life, you know, met a need, and we're, you know, it's not one or the other, it's both.
Just listening to her talk, though, it depends on why people, because I'm sure people adopt for all different kinds of reasons, but the most important reason are the needs of the child, not the needs of the people that are adopting. Because if that's the focus, I think they're going to miss out on the needs of the child, and they're great. I mean, they just are.
I hope I said that clearly enough, that, you know, just for adoptive parents not to be afraid to embrace the biological heritage of the child, and that with my parents and with the adoptees that I'm in community with, the more my adoptive parents embrace my biological past, and they've done it wonderfully, the closer I feel to them. It strengthens the relationship rather than trying to hide, you know,
Yeah.
that there's something else
Yeah,
going on,
if
the
you're-
more open
yeah.
you are.
If you operate in fear, that's not a good place to be. The man that Jamie was talking about, Max On, who actually took Naika into the orphanage from Naika's mom, has helped us a little bit. We know that she survived. I actually, when I went, because I went to the orphanage, my dad and I traveled to Haiti and went to the orphanage before Naika came, because we knew that would help the process to have pictures taken with her. So we spent 2 days there, and I actually met Naika's mom while I was there, which was, it was a bit uncomfortable and awkward. And so I've met her. And we've had, she's written 1 or 2 letters. I mean, and there's some fear from the people in Haiti, because a lot of people in Haiti believe that if a child, particularly, is adopted into America, that we treat them like slaves, that they're just coming here to service and do whatever. And so we certainly are trying to make her aware that that's not the case. And
well, I don't mean to interrupt, but she did visit the orphanage, her birth mom, and asked for updates and pictures, and that's part of it, because they get that, I don't want to call it brainwashing, but they get that belief in them that maybe they've done the wrong thing. And so I sent plenty of emails of pictures that Naika's okay. Plus, one really fun thing is Naika's younger brother was adopted shortly after Naika to a family in California. And when I was out there a few years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting his mom and him. I felt like an aunt. I don't even know if that's possible, but I felt like an aunt to him. He's adorable. And Naika and her brother have Skyped now twice together. So that's a relationship that we both, want to keep fostering, so that they don't get to age 30 or whatever and try to get to know each other, that little by little they would. And their likenesses are amazing. It's really fun to see. I just testified today for original birth certificates to be opened for adult adoptees in the state of South Dakota. So it doesn't directly relate to Naika or me, but the adoption community in general. There's a bill right now that will have another hearing on Wednesday, because they just couldn't get through it all today. And then if it passes out of that committee, it'll go to the Senate floor right away. So that's exciting.
And the purpose is
for access to original birth certificates for adoptees. So like, I have a birth certificate that I've lived with my whole life that says that my mom gave birth to me, but she didn't. So my original birth certificate has been sealed in the state of Illinois. A while back, just recently, they passed this same kind of a law. So I have my original now that has my birth mom's signature on it and the name she gave me. And I would compare it to Naika. Like, we have a birth certificate, once her adoption became legal, we have a birth certificate that says that I gave birth to her, which is funny because I've never been to Haiti, but it helps all of the, just so every time we have to give a birth certificate, they don't say, what's this? But we also have her real one that says that her mom gave birth to her.
It's just to say, when somebody's an adult, they ought to have the right to their real information. Instead of, it should be their right. So there definitely is, and I think that some people, are concerned that if they open that up, that it would open up, people may not want to go the adoption route and may, go the other, abortion or whatever else. I think there are those concerns, but you can answer.
Well, yeah, the arguments we met, because we've tried to go through with this legislation before, and the arguments we've met are concerns about abortion rates rising, when actually the states that have open records and are opening records, abortion rates are dropping. Women are different today. The thought of not being able to have access to the child that they place for adoption is overwhelming to them. They want to be able to stay in touch. And then the other statistic about original birth parents not wanting contact, that's a 1%, that's coming in about a 1% statistic. And most of the states, all of the states, that have passed legislation have a contact preference in place, so that if a birth parent really did, you think about it, there's people in your life you don't want to see, so you don't, right? Like at some point, we're adults now and we can manage our relationships, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to have a record of our own birth.